We're going to do the steaks from beef, lamb, chicken, pork, and then we're going to talk about chops. John, what is a steak?
Well, a steak is essentially a slice of a particular cut of meat, rather than the whole piece that you'd roast. It's just a slice taken off.
But first, John, we're going to talk about beef.
Okay.
So the very first thing that people think of for steaks are fillet steaks.
Right. Fillet steak, always the most tender cut of beef, but it's a steak that has very little flavour and you need to add something to it to give it a decent taste.
What about Scotch fillet?
Scotch fillet, I'd put at probably the number 2 steak. Super tender, but has some nice fat, which gives you lots of juicy steak and lots of flavour in your meat.
Porterhouse steak?
Porterhouse is a little bit leaner than Scotch, but still an exceptionally good grilling steak.
Ribeye?
Ribeye is essentially the Scotch fillet with the bone left on.
And how does that differ in taste and cooking?
Cooking won't be any different, but the taste will be a little better because you've got bone, which adds flavour to your steaks.
T-bone?
T-bone, personally, the best steak of the lot. You have a beautiful piece of porterhouse one side, the fillet the other side, fat and bone to give you lots of flavour and moisture in your meat.
Oyster blade?
Oyster blade's a bit of a underrated all-rounder. You can fry it, you can barbecue it, you can casserole it, you can slow cook it. Just incredibly versatile.
And there's a steak called blade steak, so that's different again, isn't it?
It is. It comes from pretty much the same area, but it doesn't have the beautiful line of gelatin running through the middle of it that the oyster blade does.
So it's a bit tougher.
It's not a bit tougher. It just won't produce you as rich a gravy as the oyster blade does. But will still cook up beautiful and tender, and you can fry it, you can barbecue it, you can do just about anything with it.
Rump steak?
Rump steak's a really good all-rounder. Really nice grilling steak and barbecue steak, but cut thin into strips for stir fries works really, really well.
Round steak?
Round steak, you're getting down into your basic frying steaks. It's not super lean, but you need some sort of moisture with it to cook it. Stir fries or quick casseroles.
Topside?
Topside is one of the driest steaks you can get. Tenderised and crumbed for schnitzels or mincing or thrown into a really quick stir fry.
So chuck steak?
Good old chuck steak. It's a fantastic slow cooked steak. Great for making ragouts because it breaks down into beautiful fibres when it's cooked and with huge amounts of flavour in it.
And the last but not least, skirt steak.
Skirt is one you don't see very often anymore. It's more of an old-fashioned steak, but much the same as the chuck. Really beautiful and fibrous and breaks down for a nice ragout.
Now, are there any of these names that are known as something else in America or England?
The skirt steak in America you'll see as flank steak, but other than that the names are all pretty much the same.
And now we're moving on to chicken. So chicken, we've got breast.
Yes, breast you can slice into thin steaks, makes a nice schnitzel, makes a nice stir fry, but a bit lean for grilling or barbecuing without a good marinade on it.
People talk about tenderloins a lot.
The tenderloin is just a little strip that comes from under the breast fillet, it's just a beautiful little tender piece of meat that we'll quick pan fry or grill.
And the thigh fillet.
Thigh fillet and leg fillet can be used for just about everything. Nice and moist, barbecues, grills, casseroles, just a perfect piece of chook.
And we're swapping between photos of Beachford and Georgetown. Now we're talking about lamb steaks. Lamb has 3 different steaks. Leek steak, John?
Yep, leg steak, generally a very lean steak, pan fry, stir fry, casserole kind of cooking. Very careful if you're going to try and barbecue it.
Loin steak?
Loin steak is essentially the lamb chopped with the bone removed, so grills or barbecues beautifully.
And rump steak?
Rump steak, much the same sort of thing as the loin steak. It's another chop that's had the bone removed and just sliced as a boneless piece for grilling or barbie.
And for the steaks, we're talking pork. So leg steaks for pork, John?
Yes, pork leg steaks are generally cut thin for using for pork schnitzels or pork stir fry and that kind of thing. A bit too lean for grilling or barbecuing.
Loin steak?
Loin steaks, a little bit better quality. If you're careful, you can barbecue them. Again, they're a very lean cut, so you just have to be a little careful.
And Scotch?
And the Scotch fillet, the best of the lot. Again, nice bit of fat through it, so we'll grill or barbecue, but we'll also slow cook and shred beautifully for pulled pork.
And as the sun sets here in Beechford, we're going to move quickly into chops. And John, how do chops match with steaks?
Chops will just have a little bit more flavour than steaks. A really lean piece of meat has virtually no flavour. So it all comes from either fat or bone. So you're just going to get a lot nicer flavour with a bit of bone left in it.
Thank you. And Shameless, what do you think about all of this?
Keen on the idea of steaks, eh?